The Go Idaho Podcast is hosted by Greg Langhaim and Ken Lee. In this podcast, we feature everything Idaho, including some of the most influential people in this great state. Now here's your host, Greg Langhaim.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today's guest is the Smoke Jumper.
Yeah.
Super stoked to have him on. A little bit about the owner, Tim, and his
Girlfriend Lynn.
Yep. So they are the owners up in Idaho City. It's a tiny home resort. They love traveling and a good adventure. They fell in love with Idaho City, and they started the Smoke Jumper Tiny Home Resort.
Love it.
So before we jump into talk business, I guess we'll hit some icebreakers, or
Yeah. Because people, they don't know Tim. They got to get to know Tim and
Fire away.
You know what I mean? I mean, other than he's in one of the coolest cities in all of Idaho if you haven't been, and then also he's running tiny homes now. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool.
But they don't know anything else, so let's do it.
All right. Well, okay.
So you're gonna. It's all right. I'll jump right into this. Let's go. I mean, we got a little confusion there. It's okay. So because you've decided to start this adventure. It's really an adventure place, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is the best adventure that you've ever done, and what made it that best adventure?
Very interesting. Okay. So there's always things that are like top of mind, right?
Okay.
And this actually was more random and off the beaten path, but Lynn loves to collect purses, and purses being Hermes.
She heard her voice.
I know,
She
right?
heard her name. She's like,
Lynn, we got caller number one.
Yeah, caller number one. Lynn on line number one. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
And so she loves Hermes Birkin purses, which I don't know if you guys know anything about these. Okay, so these purses are like impossible to get. Like you can walk into any Hermes store in the country and say, I've got $1 million and I want to buy a purse. And if you have not had this relationship, it'd be like buying a Porsche or Lamborghini, and you got to go through the process. But she's got contacts pretty much throughout the world, where she travels worldwide to get these. And these purses, not that she resells them, but these are purses that you buy for $20,000, $30,000.
Wow.
But they resell in the open market for $60,000 to $80,000, like instantaneously, if that's something you wanted to do.
Wow.
So she had a contact. She had a rep at an Hermes store in Mexico City.
Whoa, okay.
So she said, hey, can you get on a plane tomorrow? We're going to fly down to Mexico City. I think I can get a Birkin there. That's the color. It's the right, the right setup, whatever, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. She's like, all right, well, make sure you bring your wallet, your credit card, blah, blah, blah. We got to make sure we have all our stuff together. I'm like, yeah, of course. Duh, right? So we got to the airport, and I realized, holy crap, I forgot my wallet.
What?
So I did not have my ID. I did not have my credit cards. I didn't have anything. But we were like 2 hours early to the airport. So we rushed back to the house, grabbed my my hard card passport, like the driver's license one, right? Yeah. Cash. And you got to understand, we never cruise with like 50,000 cash to Mexico City, right?
You're asking for an adventure already, dude.
Totally. And so we were there, got to Mexico City, and of course, our anxiety levels on high carrying this cash.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I'd be freaked out.
Dude, totally.
Yeah.
So, and we were staying in a super nice hotel. So we got a little more comfortable as we were, but these are quick hits. We're in for a day or two and then we're out of there, right?
Yeah, okay.
So we woke up the next morning and we had to take an Uber to the Hermes store. Went there and everything was cool, all passed, blah, blah, blah. So we were getting ready to pay. And they said, sorry, we can't take US dollars.
Oh boy.
So I don't even remember the math, but basically just figure 35,000 US dollars in pesos is like a million pesos or whatever it is, right?
You're coming in with this big bag of pesos.
Yeah, and I didn't have my wallet, so I had no credit card. They would have taken credit card, right? But I had no credit card, and they this particular account was under my name, so the point was I couldn't. It had to be purchased under my name, right?
Yeah.
So if cash was fine, but they wouldn't take US dollars. Wow. So that put us in a situation where now we had to take this Uber to all these different exchange places.
Oh my gosh.
And you'd think it's cool. You just go to the exchange place, but the max dollars you could get converted was like $2,000 or $3,000 at a time.
So you're running to like 20 different
with the same Uber driver, wondering, are we still trusting this guy? We're not
Dude,
trusting.
he starts
this.
making a couple phone calls.
Like, think about it.
He's
He's driving us to every exchange place. We're running in, running out, right?
This is the beginning of like a nightmare movie, dude.
Wow.
You know?
Why don't they take the cash? I wonder.
I don't know. They would not take U.S. dollars. It had to be pesos. So I literally will tell you, we went to like 6 or 7 exchange places, and every time we would go to one, we'd be like, is there a place that'll do more denominations, 5,000? Anyways, finally, they said, try to go to the airport. So I think we had got up to like $10,000 or $15,000, which is like 6 or 7 places.
Oh my goodness.
And so we finally went to the airport, and the exchange rate is not as good, obviously, at the airport than it is if you're at these more local places. Make a long story short, we got it all converted, but I'm just saying we didn't even have like the ways to conceal like that large amount of pesos. Like we were just traveling light, right? We didn't even like we would come out of the hotel. I think I maybe had like some kind of sling backpack or just something, right? And she had her purse,
Total
but it wasn't
suspect,
even.
dude.
Oh, it was so sketchy,
Dude.
And it was funny because the hotel we were staying at was the same hotel where they filmed Narcos at.
Oh.
And like we sat in that, like I have photos. We sat in the same lounge where some of those shots were filmed, and it just had this same exact feeling of like feeling like we're in this sketchy.
So were you like thinking the whole time, like, dude, we're gonna have like 3 cars pull up?
Well, so here's what happened. So we did the transaction, we got everything. Now here's the next problem. The next problem is you're getting all these orange bags because when you buy this purse, you're buying accessories and things beyond just the bag, right? So it's kind of like this whole deal, right? And basically we'd set it up because we knew that we would have all these packages, so we just wanted to go straight from the Hermes store to the airport. We didn't want to have to like cruise around.
Yeah.
But Hermes is just bright orange boxes, right? And they're obscene, you know what I mean? And so there was just no getting around the fact that we had like 7 or 8 orange Hermes boxes, right? And so we're headed to the airport now. And this time we'd already ditched that Uber driver or whatever, so now we're in some like weird cab situation. But you're just, you're it doesn't matter where you are, you're always aware. But in Mexico City, again, I'm not speaking drug, but you're in a third world country that you're just not super familiar with, right? And this particular taxi driver told us when he picked us up, like we'd loaded everything, he goes, hey, I'm having some car problems, I just want to know, I hope I don't break down or whatever. And I had no idea if this is like the setup to, like,
that's what I was thinking.
Don't be alarmed when I break down when we rob you. So anyways, we're cruising back, and like again, it's just high anxiety, right? We're just like, let's just get to the airport. If we get to the airport, like we're good, right? Like we're okay, right? Literally about 2 miles before we're to the airport, we're on a bridge that's like down. Very slow moving, and we break down on a bridge, right? No. And I'm just saying, if you're playing all this, that this is really a bad thing that's going to happen, it like connected all the dots.
Yes,
like completely made sense.
Like I'm listening to a movie
where this
right
is going to go down. Yeah,
dude, they could totally make a movie.
Absolutely. So I remember I looked at Lynn and I said, look, if I tell you let's go, like we're just out of here, don't think twice about any of this stuff. So, and then when I was having this conversation, this is when the hood popped and you can't see him.
Oh, dude.
So he's got the hood popped, right? You can't see him. It's just me and her and all these boxes and bags are like mashed between us, right?
Oh, dude.
And I'm like, I said, Lynn, if this happens, just we're going for it. We're not. Don't even try to grab one thing. We're out.
Was she just like panicking?
100%,
Yeah.
1000%. Yeah. And of course, it's my fault. Didn't bring the wallet. Like there's, as a woman, right? It's like you're the dumb guy I've told you a million times. Right?
Dude, that's crazy.
So he comes back around after like literally 2 minutes of like, and still nothing had happened. But we're on a bridge, so like if we had to get out, we got to run down the bridge. There's no like off the side of the bridge, right? It's like running off the no sidewalk. It's like running on the side of the street of the bridge, right?
Man, my goodness.
And he has the hood up, comes back around. He says, "Okay, let me see if it works now." And I'm like, "Okay, this is it, right?" And he turns the car, zoom, and it starts. Whoa. And he's like, "Okay, we're cool." And then he gets out, shuts the hood, and of course, like I never voiced any of this anxiety to him. We're just sitting there like,
you gotta act cool.
Oh, cool. You got okay. Oh, it's going all right. Good. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we're just chilling back here.
That's awesome. What a story, dude. Now that's an adventure,
dude.
That's not even an adventure. That's a movie right there, dude.
Oh my gosh, man! I can't even imagine.
That is insane. Yeah. Okay, well with that, we're just gonna wrap it up. All right, good show. All right. So let's just jump into some of the icebreaker questions now. That was fantastic. All right.
Hey, if you're enjoying this clip and you want to listen to the full episode, go to wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to the Go Idaho Podcast. Now, back to the show.
These are going to be like favorites, your favorites. Okay. Favorite Idaho restaurant?
I will say Ruth's Chris Steakhouse just because it's a consistent experience no matter where you go to Ruth's Chris.
That's true. And they do have, there's one in downtown.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's one downtown. Yeah, that's kind
Is there any local eateries in Idaho City that you like?
Yeah, great question. So there's two that we love. One is called Boko Social, and that's definitely like an elevated dining experience in Idaho City. Ooh. They just recently rolled out a 5-course tasting meal with wine, the whole 9 yards.
Ooh, bring the wife up there.
Yeah, okay. And Dean, the owner, has got many years in the food industry and travels nationwide to kind of do consulting. So, I mean, he's definitely got that dialed down, and they just chose Idaho City as a place they wanted to kind of do their part-time gig. So, part-time, they run that restaurant, and it's super cool. He's got a like an art gallery in there with like real Picasso stuff. I mean, it's super. Like you never know. Like actually, when I walked in there, the very first time I walked in there, I was like, we had a shot of whiskey or whatever. I was looking at this art on the wall, and I was like looking at it close. I'm like, this stuff looks like good Picasso like knockoff. Like this is like legit, pretty cool. Like it looks almost authentic. Yeah. He's like, no, dude, this is the real deal. Wow. And he's got the plaques and the old 9 yards, and it's like so. Yeah, that was really interesting. But that's a great place. And then the Gold Mine's just like a total tried and true favorite. Like that's part of like just embodies Idaho City. The cigarette smoke and the concert in the back, and guys with open carry all over the place. And take my guns if you want. Try it. And it
try
just
it from my cold dead fingers.
Exactly. And it still represents the grittiness of the town.
On the main strip there, right at the beginning?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's right across from a little mini grocery store over there.
Perfect. I've eaten there. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
It's where guy Steve's the owner, and he's there just about every day and mingles with everybody that's there.
Good food, too.
Yeah, just a big, huge portion where there's no way you'll eat it all. Just kind of what it's about.
I love it. So. Okay. Favorite Idaho destination? And you can't say Idaho City.
Yeah, right. It's really funny. So when we first came to town, we went to McCall and checked out McCall, and we did that because we just wanted to have some frame of reference of like what is not necessarily a competition, but understanding what is like the getaway look like for people wanting kind of an elevated experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I got to tell you, between McCall, that one trip to McCall, boys, we really truly spent, I got to tell you, 18 months 100% in the grind of just Idaho City every day, traveling to Boise the once or twice a week like everybody does. And I just recently took a road trip, came back to the East Coast and drove back in, dropped in through Salmon, the 93 freeway. Yeah. Came in through Salmon and dropped down into Stanley, and I'd never done that. And I got to tell you, I've just passed through it, but I think if you haven't been to Stanley, that's definitely like a go-to thing, just because there's a bunch of hot springs, natural hot springs along the way. The Sawtooth Mountains have just kind of a geographical formation that's very unique. And just, it's a small town, but the scenery is pretty breathtaking. And
unreal. Unreal.
Yeah.
Wow, love it. This is why Idaho's so awesome.
I know.
I mean, yeah, it's great. Okay, favorite movie?
I'm going to say Heat.
Ooh, I like it. Favorite food?
I will say I like nothing more than a great Korean barbecue.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a Korean barbecue, there's just that open flame and just...
Yeah. And are you all the meats, the veggies, the bulgogi? Like, what do you...
I love the bulgogi is definitely probably number one favorite.
Yep.
I mean, also, which I love it if we could get it up here. So that there's a couple Chinese markets, and that whole little center there is coming, right?
Yeah,
But the hot pot that if you've ever been in Southern California, and they have the hot pot where you dip it in.
Super popular.
Yeah. Shabu. So I'd love it if we got some shabu up here. I think it's a market just waiting to be had. There's no shabu up here, and
I agree.
I know we're still progressing. And I think it's good and bad, right? But I think the melting pot of food is always just a great denominator, bringing people together and just hanging out and enjoying other cultures, right?
Yeah. Agreed. I'm a foodie, so
yeah.
I think you're at the age where you could have a favorite 80s song.
Wow. I can just tell you, as a kid, I used to listen to Tiffany and Debbie Gibson, and I was all about it. I'd listen to that shit on repeat. Right? But it wasn't repeat back then. It was rewind, fast forward.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
dude.
those are the Tiffany songs I just remember.
That's great.
Crushing on the album covers.
Yep. How about a favorite band? Do you have a favorite band?
Oh, wow. I listen to a lot of different stuff. I mean, Cage the Elephant's pretty cool. I still find myself kind of like this. I've always kind of been a little bit of an alt guy. One of my kids is really alt, so it takes me to a bunch of different places. But I mean, I'm the guy that's listening to pretty heavy rap. Stuff that came out of the Eazy-E days. To, could be Juice WRLD today. Where it's just that music still speaks to me. But I love just listening to. I just love seeing passion artistry, right? So whatever it is, passion in anything in life, to be honest with you, is really where it's at. And I guess the music is not the issue when you're hearing the passion, right? It all still moves you. That goosebump feeling could be any genre to me, if you can feel that artist and why they wrote that song or, behind it.
Yeah. Agreed. A couple more here, then we're going to jump into the Smoke Jumper. So don't go away, because you guys got to hear about this place. It is incredible. I can't wait to get up there, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at pictures and stuff. I'm just like, I need to go now. When we're done, we're just leaving. Anyway, favorite holiday?
That's a great question. I would tell you that, beyond the normal holidays like Christmas, whatever, I'm a big Labor Day fan, just because I love, that's really like an adventure kind of weekend for most people. Mm-hmm. And, it kind of marks the start of adventure season. So I'm kind of a Labor Day guy.
I like that. Favorite pizza topping?
I'm pretty traditional. I'd say a straight pepperoni guy for me.
Gotta have it. All right, and then last thing, what's your favorite thing about traveling?
I will just say, I think in anything for me, it's people. It's just the different experiences and learning so much about someone else's life and their upbringing and what they do. I came from a fairly white-collar existence in the last 20 years of mortgage, finance, the auto industry, and just having spent the last, I would say, going on now 5, 6, 7 years where it's super rural and just really doing everything with your own hands and tools, and just seeing farms run and agricultural stuff and just stuff that I've driven by on a freeway a million times and don't give it a second thought, but just realizing the hard work. There's so many hardworking freaking people out there.
Dude, there are, man.
You make money in a white collar way. Of course, there's huge tons of benefits to that, but I think we so easily forget these people in small towns and small worlds that are making our everyday life so much easier, food so much better, or just existence that we are so focused on tech and the latest iPhone, and I am, right? So am I. But just being in the roots of where this is the family farm and this is the way we do it, and we've been doing it for in the small town, and just even Idaho City, right? Just seeing people that Idaho City's still a tough town, the elements, the snow, right? But these are people that wouldn't leave that town. You'd have to drag them out, right? No matter what the hardship is. And just seeing people's resourcefulness, I think is always just what I am always admire as I travel and I see different successful businesses or people or families or, again, farms, whatever it is. I'm always really moved by people that are successful, and it's not necessarily always measured on dollars in the bank, but just on what value you bring to a community, what value you bring to your family, what value you bring, I was in Vermont actually checking out the fall foliage. And I was actually at a farm watching them go through the milking process, and it was super cool. And one of the kids came out it was like 6 in the morning. You show up at 6 in the morning for this like farm little tour, right? The kid comes out. He's probably like 12 years old. He's a young kid, right? But I mean, this kid is just yoked. Like they talk about farm strength, right?
Farm muscles.
I mean, this kid, and then I found out he's like the #1 ranked wrestler in Vermont. It's just you. And like, there's a
and he's still working on the farm.
Yeah, there's a whole story behind this, right? Like this kid's like the hardest working kid, gets up at 4 in the morning, feeds the cows, does this, has wrestling practice after school from 3 to 6, and I would never have met him. Guess I'm meeting the #1 ranked prospect wrestling kid, 12 years old, at some farm experience to see how they milk cows, right? That's
crazy.
What I love about just cruising around.
Yeah, traveling it's about the people. And speaking about the people, let's talk about Smoke Jumper and the people of Idaho City, and let's start talking about this place and this business.
Yeah, super interested in how you ended up in Idaho City for that. And I mean, tiny homes is so trendy, you know.
Right.
So, what is a Smoke Jumper for those listening, and how did you get started in this?
Yeah, fair enough. So we'll try to keep it as brief with it being condensed. But yeah, long story short, we have spent the last 4 or 5 years on the Oregon coast. That all started because my son went to school at the University of Oregon, bought a vacation home, realized we were only there, a week out of the month, if that, and just had a bunch of experience in actually having a yacht charter company out of Newport Beach.
Oh.
And the yacht experience with that was we'd have boats that would break all the freaking time, right?
Yeah.
But we were in this prime real estate, Balboa Island, where we docked our boats.
Yeah.
And my business partner Bill, I said, dude, if we could figure out some way to make some money while these boats just sit here, and they can't run.
Yeah.
And we just kind of thought, I wonder if we could Airbnb these boats. Like, is that a thing? Like, is that a real thing? And so I'm like, all right. So we took photos of the boat. We just put it on Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, for like 90 days, we were sold out on like 3 boats. And we started really like, dude, let's not even run the boats anymore. Like, why put the boats through the pressure of like trying to catch fish and people getting seasick and the boats in the shop, right? Like, just leave it locked up and let people like hang out on the boats, right? So we did that till we got a letter from the city saying that's not allowed. So we got a cease and desist. But it was that experience that made me really realize people crave unique experiences.
Yes.
Right?
Big time.
And people just want something different than they've ever done before. And there's a whole market for that, right? Tiny houses business and another extension of that, right? But we bought some properties on the Oregon coast, and it was just kind of one by one. And we'd never really renovated before, kind of knew, but I decided, you know what, I'm just going to dive into these projects all the way, and let's bring guys in and let me just work with these guys. And literally I was just like an apprentice for these first couple houses that we did. Or
that's awesome.
Like, show me how you cut that board that way. Like, you put tape on the caulking so that it doesn't spill over. Just all these little hacks that you learn from just bringing in different tradesmen, right? And as the owner, I have kind of the supervisory thing, but it was never an absentee owner. Like, let's just go hang out and we'll come back and hopefully in 30 days. Like, I literally was at the site with these guys. I was the coffee boy. I mean, I was their assistant, right? And I would just like, okay, I'm going to saw this. Like, am I going to cut my finger off? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, wait, you're doing that with no gloves on? You know what I mean? All this stuff. That, again, this appreciation for what people do, right? Yeah. That's just so far from what I did, right? So long story short, having had the yacht charter Airbnb experience to realizing let's try this in these homes, and then Lynn, my girlfriend, is an interior decorator by trade. Very cool. So it really kind of, and everything still was its own. We'd never decorated, kind of these woodsy, so try to have this like rustic modern was really the vibe that we were kind of have always been kind of obsessed with, right?
I love it.
So the bottom line is we had 3 or 4 vacation rentals in Oregon, and the pandemic came, and then our big project was taking a barn that had sat vacant. We had 13 acres where there was a barn that just sat there, and we just would look at the barn, and we'd look at the barn, and we'd look at the barn, but nothing would happen with the barn. And I'm just like, man, we could just do something with this, right?
Yeah.
But then the pandemic hit, and I thought we were all going to die, so I grabbed my whole family. We stuffed them all in a minivan. We drove to Oregon. I said, we're staying on this 13 acres until we're the last people left standing.
Man, a little Walking Dead action
like, I'm
going on.
Waiting for the people to be just coming after us on the highways. We're driving up the one, right? But the barn renovation was really kind of the eye-opener because that had no real expectations. It was just like, okay, we got like I don't know how long, but I've got 4 kids. I got a couple guys that I've worked with on these other Oregon projects that really are around. Mm-hmm. So we took this barn, gutted it, and did our own plumbing, electric, whatever. But we decided to turn it into what we call a tech studio. And because I'm super into video and photos, and I'm like, let's make some. I don't have any idea, but this was when the whole world was starting to kind of work remote.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know what? Let's just set this up as if this is going to be my own personal space with everything I want, right?
Right.
So we're talking like 34-inch LG ultra wide monitors. We're talking everything, Logitech.
So when are we moving the Go Idaho studio over there?
I know, jeez.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just made it a tech, we call it a tech studio, right? So it still had a projector for the TV, for the movie. So when you're sitting in this king size bed watching this huge 110-inch TV experience with surround sound, right? Like for me, it was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Now let's share it with the world and see how it does, right?
Right.
And that just, it's been crazy. It's been our #1 property.
Oh,
and it's literally this barn, the part that we renovated is only 800 square feet. So it's pretty small, like relatively figured, right? But it is in the middle of the woods. It does have its own private fire pit overlooking a lake through the trees. That's It's super scenic. But the key with that was unique, yes. Tech friendly, yes. Because I realized for wanting to build like a price point, right? You know, let's be honest, $30, $50 a night places are going to usually garner a certain type of clientele. Right?
Yep.
And in order to keep a price point, you know, where the guests you want, you've also got to provide the amenities you want, right? And this is a lot of things that Lynn and I just learned through traveling, right? But so when we came here to Idaho, we were here actually, shout out to Drake at Lupo Motors. We were going to buy an earth roamer, which is a sport utility.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, we've done all this work. I think we've earned it.
Yeah.
I know it's a terrible waste of money, but nobody cares. Right? We're at that point. We can travel. Let's just do it, right? And Lynn was absolutely going for none of that. So she entertained, like, okay, we'll go to Boise. We'll look at this thing. But I think in her whole mind, she was just thinking, how am I going to untrack this dog off this task?
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
So met Drake, looked at the earth roamer. We were gonna, you know, I was like, all right, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go back tomorrow. We're gonna pull the trigger. Like, let's get it done. And she's like, can we please just look at real estate for like the same price? And these earth roamers are like $800, $700. So this was $700,000, right? A depreciating asset, right?
Oh yeah.
Not gonna go up in value, right? It's an RV.
Yep.
Like, they may hold their value somewhat, but they're still a depreciating asset, right? So I said, okay, fine. Knowing and thinking, because our new focus was, what we had learned was, we want to be able to put multiple units on one piece of property, because from a revenue standpoint, obviously you can 4, 5, 6, 7 times the revenue on one piece of property. Right.
Yeah.
So there was 2 properties for sale, between $600,000 to $800,000 that were zoned commercial.
Dude.
One was in Garden Valley, which is kind of a weird duplex. It just there was no real room, and it was like kind of in a corner neighborhood. It just didn't make sense. And there was this property in Idaho City that I'm like, all right, let's go drive up there. I don't even know where Idaho City is.
Right.
But it said only 45 minutes from Boise. And I'm like, and I'm looking at the photos, and I'm like, dude, this looks like the woods, and it's like 45 minutes from Boise. Like, that could be a thing. Like, that could work, right?
Day trip, perfect.
Yeah. So we drove up, of course, like in the middle of July, where like the town's blown out. So I was like, oh shit, like, why is this not like already sold?
Right. Yeah.
But it was a mobile home park, and there were tenants there. So I mean, there was obviously this whole separate thing of things that we thought about, probably not deeply enough about, but things that, you know, we did realize, like, the undertaking was going to be pretty massive. But I think we did kind of falsely so had a lot of confidence in just from the 4 Oregon coast properties, and just like, we know nothing to like make it happen, right? Like, this is just the next evolution, right? In retrospect, I feel like we kind of skipped a couple steps before we took on this project, you know, to think we really knew what we were doing, right? But yeah, no, we fell in love with the town almost immediately, just because we felt like it was so authentic.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's totally. So you landed. You obviously you didn't get the vehicle,
right?
You got the property
over,
instead.
Yeah.
And then Tiny Homes just was like, you know what, we don't want to do, you know, just another cabin. We want something more modern, something. A
lot of back and forth, but yeah, long story short, we knew tiny homes was always something we were personally fascinated with. We knew understanding that there's a couple different demographics we were looking to serve. One is people that are considering moving into tiny homes, right?
Yeah.
And want to have like a real working idea of like, what would it be like to live in a tiny home? Could we actually do that? So there's that clientele demographic, right? There's the Instagram demographic of like modern, trendy, cool, right?
Totally.
And
so
then
smart.
And then there was also just the getaway crowd of people looking for a unique getaway from Boise, right? So we were kind of looking to kind of hit those marks, and that's how we stumbled on Drop Structures, which was the builder for our tiny homes.
Okay, I was gonna ask you, like, how did you find the construction, all that stuff? Because it's during just post-pandemic a little bit, and everything was gone.
You got it. So we traveled the country. We went Colorado. We went a couple places on the East Coast. Did a lot of Instagram shopping, right? We found Drop Structures, I think, on Instagram. We're like, oh, these are really modern, trendy. They were in Canada, and I thought, well, that's far. But in reality, they're in Lethbridge, Canada, which is only 11 hours by like true drive time to Idaho City. They're right north of Whitefish, Montana, is where you drop in from on their side. So we realized, hey, it wasn't that far. So we flew to, I think, Calgary, and then we drove to Lethbridge, and so it was really interesting. So in the pandemic, which is when this was, different countries had different supply chains and different stuff, whatever. But like construction and materials was not their issue. So they didn't have any major issues. And at the time, the pandemic was still, like, how the housing market went super crazy in the pandemic, but the first maybe 6 to 9 months of the pandemic, everybody wasn't sure.
Right.
So it was kind of less... Everybody wanted to do something, but didn't know if that was like the dumbest financial decision or the smartest one, right? So Drop Structures didn't have like this huge queue filled up either yet. They were still kind of doing more of these one-offs. So when we said, hey, we're thinking about 6 or 7 of them, they were all about that. And that kind of got us moved up the queue line, But the fact that we were able to visit them on site, completely sealed warehouse, like where they could do work no matter what time. Like some of these builders in Colorado, for example, like, they're like working outside under tents, and I'm not saying completely hand to mouth, but it's definitely more not super controlled, right? And weather's definitely
the weather's crazy over there.
But they were there like, I don't know, 20,000 square foot warehouse, and they had a process that they were doing all these, and they were just pushing them out. And like when we started to look and met them up there and saw the closed cell foam insulation and just saw the actual building techniques they were using, we were impressed. And we're like, okay, if this is what it is, let's go. So, but they were really fair with us. They worked with us on kind of like a financing arrangement and getting us, figure out the terms that was going to work, knowing we were in the middle of this development of the actual property itself. There was a commercial building. So the name The Smoke Jumper comes because when we bought the property, there was 7 manufactured homes, and there was a big commercial building that had not been touched in probably 50 years. Just a big square building that I was like, I don't know, do we save this? Do we not save this? Like, it looks like it could have some historical relevance, but like, it's not good. right. And then we met the owner, and we're talking, so what is this? What is this thing? She's like, oh, this is a smoke jumper building. I'm like, excuse me? What is that? What does that even mean? I wasn't in this firefighting world to really understand all this firsthand, right? He's like, oh yeah, no, the smoke jumpers used to use this building. Right up the street is BLM, which, Bureau of Land Management owned a bunch of structures there, and they had this, and we made a deal, and I pulled it down here. But yeah, the actual smoke jumpers used to live in this building in the top floor, and then they'd roll out, pack their chutes, do all their stuff.
That's so
and they'd roll out of the front, and I'm like, dude, this is our name. This is our identity.
Oh my god,
that is so perfect.
This is our aha moment, because we went through this whole what are we going to name this place? What are we going to, you know what I'm saying?
The Smoke Jumper. It's such a cool name too.
It is, and it's so authentic. And then through that, we really got to meet a ton of people in the firefighting community, original smoke jumpers. We met like 3 or 4 that used to live and work in that building that came and showed us like initials where he had written something in 1960 about his girlfriend, he got through a breakup, wrote some stupid thing like F Vanessa or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was just like,
I'm away out here fighting fire, and you're over cheating on with Billy.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so cool.
So that was and it was not cost effective to keep the building.
Okay.
But the history and the story, and just wanting to also feel like we were doing our part, and fixing what we could and revitalizing a certain part of it, but trying to preserve history where we could. So, but we had to structurally go in. We had to get underneath we had to go in from the bottom. All the beams were rotted. All the floor was warped.
But it's still there, though.
Yeah.
You guys renovated it.
Completely brought it back to life.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Think about it. A new company coming in, or you guys, a new investor, and then you take a building. Because that city, if you guys don't know, Idaho City really was the first major city in not only Idaho but the entire Pacific Northwest. At one point, I believe in the late 1800s or mid 1800s, the biggest
bigger
town.
Than Portland by 5 times.
Yeah, I mean it was a gold mining town, and the history there is absolutely incredible. For you guys to come in and preserve something like that, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it meant a lot to us too. Like there was a part where we felt we have a role to play in this, right? And we have an obligation. And whether it's ever recognized by anyone or not, obviously it was. It has, and so that's great, right? But it's just that kind of feeling like you do realize when you kind of take these projects and you don't really know what you're in for or whatever, I think you do have a sense of obligation to understanding the history of something and understanding is there a way to preserve that history so that the authenticity in the history remains. And I think for us that was a thing that meant a lot to us.
And it gives you a personal connection now to the town.
Absolutely.
It's not just I'm here now. No, this is, you know what I mean? You're part of that now. That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. But man, I gotta say, Idaho's changing demographically.
Sure.
That's a small town, Idaho City. So for someone to roll in and just like knock down building, I mean, what was the feedback and what's the support been now?
Yeah, very great question. So, I think so. Part of our stuff that we did in Oregon is in these small rural areas as well. But we're talking like we're on our own private lot, heading in the trees, like whatever you do on your own land is your own business. Nobody really cares. So, but I think there was a little bit of, we kind of like thought that, but this project is right on Highway 21. Truth is there was tenants in there, and the issue, and I will just say for anyone, I guess going back through this process again was, we let the agent that represented the seller also represent us as the buyer. And I'm not going to say that anyone necessarily had any bad motives. I'm just saying, there's less of the story perhaps than you may would get if you have a representation on both sides. And it can work both ways, right? Sure. But the long story short was supposedly the tenants all knew that, the sale was going to happen. Once the sale would happen, everybody would have to find a place to live, and they'd have 30 days. And so for us, it was all... and the problem was we did really actually want to talk to tenants, but we didn't legally own the building. We didn't own the property, so we didn't have any legal right to talk to the tenants and find out what their viewpoint was, right? But the truth was like 4 out of the 7 weren't paying rent. And it was, look, I'm not here speaking anything negatively. It was just a tough situation where an owner that was more of a logger, absentee owner, let people stay and collect rent when they could, and of course giving people this kind of false sense of security that you could just kind of do whatever you wanted, right? So having to come in here, there's no way other than to kind of look like the bad guy when you're coming in, and you're going to clean something up, and you're going to say, hey, this isn't okay anymore, right? So initially I will say the town pushback was pretty heavy, and again, if you want to just focus on this particular aspect that someone now doesn't have a home to live in, and you want to just hang your hat on that, okay, fair, right? Totally. But I'm saying that just those verbiage, Idaho changing, the point is all that there's a drum to beat, let's put it that way, right? And there's an audience that'll hear just that if you want to cater to that audience, right? But I'll tell you in truthfulness, what we did was once we owned it, I didn't hide behind attorneys or agents. Once we served, we started getting noticed that like, wait, what? 30 days, So once I knew this, and then there was a local Idaho City Facebook group, and I started realizing all these people are posting about who are these owners, like this is like, okay, shit, we might get shot walking into town, right?
Hey, that was Idaho City back in the day.
Like what's the deal, right? But truthfully, no, so I sat with every tenant. We gave them all 90 days free rent. So
that's huge.
So we did that.
You took the bull by the horns, basically.
Yeah, we delayed construction for 4 months. So we basically ended up it was in for 3 to 3.5 months, and then like literally I was calling a bunch of storage places for a couple of tenants that just felt overwhelmed, and just kind of walking through that process with them. We did have a gentleman that was handicapped, so I went through the process of working with getting one of our handymen to retrofit a place for him, open the doorways, make sure. So, cool. So, and again, I don't say all this because I'm looking for props. I'm saying all this because I did feel like, shoot, this does suck for people, regardless of whether they're paying rent or not, regardless of, these aren't really like bad people. They're just human people that are going through tough times and then got probably enabled to a certain extent, right? But, but yeah, I just, for our own conscience, I felt like, look, let's just try to do what we can. And even if this slows our, renovation project, like, let's just bite the bullet. But the truth is, that whole cost is probably close to $60,000, $70,000 between the free rent, still paying mortgage on a property you own, and all those months that you're now not open because you delayed development by 3 or 4 months, right? So there's a huge chain reaction in trying to do the right thing that is always tough, that no one will feel sympathy for you, right?
right.
But, but I the good thing was for us, we felt zero guilt, when it was all over, right? And then I think over time, the town really did start to see and understand, like, look, whether we agree or disagree, whether we like or don't like tiny home, whatever it was, right? We can't say these are just horrible humans. You know what I'm saying? Like, these people have definitely bent over backwards too.
That's great.
And we even had a couple of tenants in these Facebook groups saying, dude, I'm one of the people that had to move, and like, we understand, we get it. Like, of course it wasn't fun to move, but this guy needs our support. Like, this is part of this town. And so really that started to really kind of turn, a lot of either public perception or the people that were at least verbalizing it, kind of all started to dissipate. And, like everything, once everything settles and it's kind of new reality. And now there's new jobs being created for locals, and, it all kind of comes full circle. But I think for us, just staying out in front of it and not shying away from it. And, hey, I'm here. I'm in my truck every day. Pull up, show up. I'm like, there's no third party. We're here. And then we also engage with local contractors that, so the contractor Tom Secor, one of our contractors, has a big, huge lot across the street with tractors and all that. We brought him in early, and, he had all the local lay of the land. So we were able to just really invest with a lot of local community, from the businesses to, so over time it became, exactly what it should be, right? Privately owned property, it's your investment. You have the right to invest however you want, and, I know fortunately, we also wanted to do it in a way that was going to be desirable to hopefully, to the community and the travelers, and, but it's important to understand, if you're ever trying to do, I think anything in life, it doesn't really matter what it is. If it's something new or different, you're going to have pushback, and there's a point in life where I think it's okay to listen to that and understand the different viewpoints. But if you want to be successful in life, I think it's extremely important to know your convictions and know that whoever it is, if I know my compass is pointing in the right direction, I'll do whatever I got to do. And I don't care what feathers that's going to ruffle, because someone else is going to do it if you don't.
Totally. And but that's what keeps people on the sidelines, is what you just experienced or shared with everyone, is just like the fear of the unknown, and like, oh my gosh, all the flack I'm going to get. And so, but I think you're spot on.
So, okay, for somebody who's never been to the smoke jumper, what can they expect? Because I've seen the photos, but what can they expect? What's the experience going to be for them?
Perfect. So I would tell you, our focus was trying to create not just like an elevated glamping experience where, it's nicer than just having to do your own tent, but it's still a tent, right? We did this and created and brought units in where you feel like if you had to live there for X period of time, you could absolutely make that work, as it's still completely functional in everything that you'd have in a normal home, but in 240 square feet. So what I mean by that is we still have stovetops. We have full residential bathrooms that have a full shower, full toilet, full sink in the bathroom. Women can change and do makeup and do all that in the bathroom, right?
That's so funny. I was actually going to ask that question. Are there bathrooms in there? Because they're so small. But it sounds like a weird question, but that's important to people.
No, and there's compromises, right? Whenever you're taking something that could be 1,500 square feet and trying to cram it into 240,
right?
For sure, compromises got to get made, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, where are you going to make those compromises, and how feng shui can you get to like make it so it still flows but works and is functional? Like, you could cram a bunch of shit in there and like say you've got it all, but you can't really walk in there, so it didn't really feel that way, right?
Right.
But we really still want to make tech friendly, so it's got a definitely working computer desk with high-speed Wi-Fi, USB-C plugs, right? Geez, so everything, mouse pads, girl made out of Portland, Oregon, did all our desk accessories. So we've got cool mouse pads and, just pen holders and just all that stuff where if you came from, like you said, okay, I'll go, but I gotta work, right? Yeah. You would have zero compromise with being able to plug right in and just continue working, right?
And I saw that you guys even have like electric vehicle plugins.
Yeah, so that was another, again, understanding and kind of wanting to evolve and understand, like, look, Idaho City can be steeped in history, but that doesn't mean we can't accommodate people that are driving electric vehicles that want to adventure and explore. Because the winter I was there, last winter, when I was doing all this development, right, I would see these Teslas like struggle into these places, and I could just see the range anxiety on their face of like, do we keep going or are we calling it, right? Yeah. Like, and if you've ever had any experience with electric and you're plugging in at 110, right, you're getting like 3 miles an hour or something like that, right? So like you charge all night long and you're gonna get another 20 miles out of it. You know what I'm saying? So I thought, I think let's really focus on biting the bullet initially, but we really want people to know from Jump Street. Like, of course, we're not going to be able to do everything we want in this tiny home resort from day one, right? But let's make this user-friendly enough where there's people from all walks of life in Boise that can be like, dude, let's go. Like, we have zero concerns, and the EVs have been a big hit. So we got a universal EV, so it could be a Tesla. It's not just a Tesla, right? Nice. So it can be any electric vehicle.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's just a tip for Tesla that they add, which they'll always have that on them to plug into a Tesla. But these are fast charging. So I'm saying, like, you'll get a full charge in about 4 or 5 hours from zero.
Wow. So I mean, in each tiny home has their own fire pit.
Yeah, solo smokeless fire pit with its own cooktop on top. So you can still, you got to work for it, right? There's no propane. So you got to be able to manage the fire and you got to be able to manage your heat level and understanding that, right? But there's a solo smokeless fire pit, so you're not having to jump chairs every 5 seconds to get out of the way of the smoke, right?
It's the worst.
And when we talk about expectations, what we really wanted was people to be able to come out, not know anything about the person to your left or right, and feel far enough away and private enough that if you want to have zero communication with that left and right people, you're welcome to do that. No one's going to judge you or hold that against you. Yeah. But if you want to like figure out or talk to the people that are there with you that kind of showed up on the shared weekend, but it's awesome. Like, we'll see, let's say 7 fire pits running, and then we'll see homes 2, 3, and 4 all move their chairs all around, or even bring 2 or 3 fire pits together and turn it into kind of more of a community experience, right?
That's cool.
So I think it's really about just bringing people together in a vibe where maybe you didn't think about it or ask for it. You just thought, we're going to go to this tiny home thing, right? But it was just there 2 weeks ago, and I was like talking to one of the guests in like 3, right? And I'm like, did you guys come with the guest in 2? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay, I saw you guys hanging out, so I thought you guys came together, right? He's like, no, dude, the guy's wearing a T-shirt that I saw earlier today in Boise, and I was like, were you in Boise today? It's like, yeah. So the bottom line is they were at the same soccer for their girls. The kids, the boy, kids, whatever. Yeah. They were at the same soccer match. And their kids go to the same elementary or junior high, whatever it was.
Right.
But they didn't know each other prior to this moment. Dude. So they became like super best friends, right?
So
in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I did wonder, because I saw when they pulled up, it didn't seem like there was mutual interaction. And it just was like later on in the evening that I noticed they had like buddied up, so to speak. And I was like, maybe they did come together. And then when I asked them about it, it was like, oh no, yeah, we met, blah, blah, blah.
That's so crazy.
So I think, we talk about, you asked me earlier, right? What do I find so interesting about traveling or this or that? It's people, right? And just enjoying these genuine shared human experiences, right?
Yeah.
I think that I find fascinating and cool. And I think that's part of what this vibe is whatever your reason is for wanting to check out a tiny home or stay in a tiny home, whether it was because you're thinking about living in one, you're thinking about moving, you're thinking about wanting to just get out of town for a weekend, whatever that situation is, it's coming up here and knowing whatever your problems are from wherever you came from, they'll still be there when you get back.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But while you're here, you don't have to worry about any of that shit.
Nice. And there's full kitchens. So like, say somebody wants to come up, go to the local grocery store, grab some stuff, and do their own cooking. They can do all of that
Absolutely.
there?
100%. We've had a couple of hunting groups come up, and they lock down for a week, and they make it at the base camp for their hunting.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
So they have their Yeti coolers and all their stuff on the front, but we still have refrigerators and all that, right?
Okay.
But yeah, they set it up as a base camp, and then we've done now 2 corporate events. We did one with U-Haul, where they rent the whole resort. So all 7 units.
Way.
So U-Haul was all 7 units for 7 of their executives. So each person had their tiny home. And then we had the Record Group, which is like a food sourcing group out of Boise.
Okay.
They do all the food sourcing, like for Albertsons, like produce sourcing, whatever, right? And they used it for corporate meetings. So this thing is, and we're learning about this too. Like we didn't necessarily know, is this going to be, corporate things? We've got a yoga retreat coming up in January where they're going to come up and they're going to do their yoga retreat. But you realize the group thing is actually really cool. It wasn't necessarily built for that, but now you imagine what I just said, going home to your family and saying, hey, invite the neighbors, invite 7 families, right? Which, let's just call it $1,500 a night. Divide that by 7.
Yes.
There's only $200 a head, right?
That's the way
$100 a head if
for
you think
the
about it.
experience?
And being
that's the
able
way
to
to do
have
it.
this like huge camping get without renting the RV, without the kids having to figure out where they're going to take and just, it's actually like we're learning it too. Like I'm just saying, it wasn't necessarily what we envisioned, but we kind of had this open-ended thought process of like, let's just see what this looks like, and we'll go from there.
So you mentioned families. Like, how big are these? Like, how many can sleep in each?
Great
Are there
question.
different sizes?
Good question. I was actually going to ask that.
Yeah.
Great question.
So 4, to answer your
Max,
question. So
okay.
we have 6 units that are all the same floor plan, and they have a king-size loft bedroom.
Okay.
So it's big, right? Like
Yeah.
you could
King is
technically
huge.
sleep 3 up there, no
easy,
problem,
on a
right?
king.
But we call that 2 up there, and then the couches we bought, and spent a lot of time actually focusing on this. We bought couches all from Crate and Barrel, which is a pretty expensive furniture place.
That's great.
But we did that because we wanted a good quality. But the main reason we bought them is because they pull out into a full size bed, but the mattress is built in. There's no springs. It's it's not the kind of where there's these where there's these like holes where you fall through.
Yep.
Or the hotel one, we're like, oh, the spring, I didn't see that.
What was that?
Or it's like, where do we put the pillows now that like nothing fits ever right back in there the way it should,
So
right? So you got these 4 pillows floating around, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, in tiny home, you got to always think about what are you going to do with the space, right? Like if you have 4 huge pillows that aren't going to fit back on the couch once you pull the mattress out, like that's going to be annoying, right?
No doubt.
So, but yeah, long story short. So, and then our 7th unit is an ADA handicap accessible unit.
Awesome.
So, and that's just been a tough unit just because it's a compromise everywhere. So what we basically did, we set up with a triple bunk bed, which means that it's got like a roll out trundle bottom bunk. So again, from a husband and wife perspective, it's not perfect because it's still, there's a one level, right? But, maybe a Murphy bed, we're still kind of looking at different concepts, but you got to leave enough width to be able to get get a wheelchair in and out through the bathroom. So everything's set up, ramp, it's perfect, it's great, but that sleeps 3. So if you add 6 times 4 is 24, plus 3 is 27. So 27 people can very comfortably, and I can just tell you, like a husband and wife sleeping on the couch of the pull-out is 0, like comfortable. Like you're not going to be like, oh, this sucks. Like it's
So if your husband and wife, you go there and you say you got 3 kids, throw the 3 kids up on the king.
no problem, yeah, or leave them on the couch.
Dude, next family trip.
Totally good.
My brothers, if you guys are watching this or listening to this, we got it locked in. Let's go. We're ready. Yeah.
And I'll tell you the other thing too that we noticed on like the corporate stuff or whatever. So my contractor Tom has all the equipment. I have a couple tractors, and we did this, but we did this. This record group, the food sourcing group, they said, hey, is there any team building exercise? And I'm like, well, there's hiking everywhere or whatever, right? He's like, trust me, we ain't hiking anywhere, okay? We're going to have 5-star meals, have Dean from BOCO bring in all the stuff.
Right.
Like, team building is more like mentally team building, right? So I'm like, okay, that's fair. So I'm like, how would you guys like to drive tractors? They're like, what? Like, send it. So I call my contractor, Tom. I'm like, dude, let's get insurance. We got to figure this out. I understand. He's naturally, like, nervous by nature. Right? But I'm like, let's just figure this out, right? And he's like, so we got the insurance. We got everything. Now let's sign the waivers. You're going to die. You can't sue us, right? But these guys all came out. They jumped on these different pieces of equipment, excavators, and, tractors with pushers. And, we let them move logs and gravel.
Dude,
we did a bunch of stuff we needed to get done. We had this backlot that has a bunch of cottonwood trees that have
put them to work.
So they literally would take them, put them in the loader. They take them in the loader, move them across the street. So it was kind of this 2-in-1 thing. But then we realized, and they said, dude, this is priceless. Like, when you think of a team building event, we would have never envisioned this.
No.
So the point is, like, I think we're kind of in this like exploratory phase where it's
Yeah.
cool stuff, like cool stuff,
dude,
like
totally.
Dude, I love that.
I love it too. So, full heat, obviously. I mean, you guys are set up. AC,
Yeah.
heat, we're
AC
year
heat
round.
and a wood fireplace.
And
the
a
wood
wood
fireplace
fireplace,
was super
yeah.
cute. The local mill cuts our firewood for us, so it fits in there.
Are you open year round?
Open year round, yeah. We're gonna full
snow,
send in the winter.
let's go.
Christmas trees, the people come get your Christmas tree and stay in a tiny home for the weekend.
That's
and,
awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna really work to accommodate the cross country skiers, the snowmobilers.
I was gonna say snowmobiling's big up there.
Snowmobiling. And then you got a lot of like utility stuff that's still got to go on in the year with Idaho Power and surveyors, and there's still a lot of that use Idaho City kind of as that midway point between wherever up in the woods they're going. So, I'm not sure exactly what our winter are going to look like, but like anything else, we'll acclimate, adjust accordingly, and that is what it is.
Dude, I love it.
So much fun.
So Airbnb is the base. I mean, how do they reserve? They go to your website, Instagram, or?
Yeah, so we definitely are on Airbnb, and I would say that's probably 50% of our traffic is through Airbnb. VRBO also, which is a 10-15%. But yeah, direct booking through our website saves on some of the online Airbnb fees, right? But yeah, smokejumper.idaho.com, and you can just see the town. And we didn't talk about the hot springs, but there's hot springs is like 2 miles away.
Okay.
So like kind of really everybody's deal is they set up their soak time at like 6 o'clock or whatever time they can get their soak time in. They'll check in, and if we can accommodate an early check-in, we will. Right, get all set up, go to your soak, come back over, have dinner at the gold mine or maybe Boco or Trude, wherever, right, and then come back, have your fire pit. Do some s'mores, marshmallows.
Sounds so nice.
Classic Idaho adventure.
Dude, right?
And soak in a hot spring.
And the thing is, all it took was one person or two people in this case to think out of the box and go, why couldn't we do this? And then you guys just did it. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely ask, like, can we do this? Like, is there a reason someone else hasn't done it or whatever, right? And, like, sometimes there's valid reasons for that. Of course. But, like, in our situation, I will say, like, we went, like, $300,000 over budget. And when you're, like, a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, that's a ton of money. Because we had to do all new plumbing, all new electrical, and all new sewer. So we had no idea, but when the power lines were like hanging so low, we called Idaho Power so we could do our excavation, and they came out and they're like, oh, this is never going to work. Like, I don't even know how we allowed this all these years. You're going to have to go underground. Wow. So when they say that, like, okay, you got to call Idaho Power and you're subjected to whatever they tell you. Okay, your new box is $15,000. Okay, you got to run everything underground. And then you have your local electrician that's going to come in, and that's $30,000 to plug 7 tiny homes, a commercial building, and everything underground, right? You got that. And then we found out when we started pulling stuff back to connect the water lines to our units, like, holy crap, this stuff's held together by literally like Flex Seal and like zip ties.
Goodness.
Like holding pipes together, right? And I'm thinking, if this is just this random section we picked, right? And we'd also heard from the city after the fact that the owner had been there many times pleading for water forgiveness because there would just be a leak somewhere and 600 gallons would spill into the ground somewhere. Right? So I will say this project was not without its challenges and not without huge learning curves that were late night conversations where we're almost on our knees. You know what I'm saying? And we're just like, is there an exit strategy if we have any more bad news? Right? So it was emotionally, especially like, like you think when you see one of these, at least I would, if I saw like what we built, right? I'm thinking like, oh, I wonder what company that is. They probably got a guy in the engineering division. They probably got a guy in the permit division, right?
Right.
But, like, all of those,
it's just me.
All
and
of those
girlfriend.
hats were me and Lynn, right?
Wow.
And it's like, okay, so Tom says he thinks we should put all new water in here. Like, do you think we should do that? Like, I don't know. Should we? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Well, how much is it? Like, I don't know.
Wow.
Right? Like, I can't tell you how many. Like, okay, so Tom said the structure's like all bad. Like, we got to replace all the floor joists. We got to like. so if we want to save this building, like this is what we're gonna have to do. Like,
man.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
right? So there was a lot of, there was a lot of things we could do on our own, but then there was a ton of stuff that we obviously couldn't, right? But yeah, so I would say you always want to chase your dreams. I have zero regrets, and even if this project we're still sitting here today wasn't off the ground, I guess I probably would regret it. But the point is, I think it's great to fail and understand what you're learning along the way. And there was definitely chances that this project could have been dead on arrival from a permitting perspective, from running out of money. I mean, we've had to leverage assets here and there. We had to definitely make some compromises we never anticipated in the beginning, right?
Right.
But I think if you just have that passion, we're like, dude, I don't care. We're here.
Yeah.
We're already here, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have kids. No matter how bad you hate those kids, right?
Yeah.
You're not literally going to throw them out the window, right? You're going to have to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is the same kind of principle that you've got to apply when you're in real estate, whether you're in whatever kind of business you're in, if it's a new venture. So I would just say that part's been fulfilling. When you start getting these good reviews and people being like, dude, we're so stoked. Like,
That's actually was going to be my next question. So what's been the feedback for the people that actually go and arrive and stay with their families?
Yeah.
Like, what's it been like?
So it's super funny. So our Oregon Coast properties, again, maybe a false sense of confidence, but we've always been like 4.96 stars or greater on all of our Oregon properties. And on an Airbnb's like scale, that's a pretty hard metric to hit, right?
Yeah.
And we have over like 1,000 reviews. So being able to maintain that on X amount of reviews.
Yeah.
So, but it gives you confidence, but it also makes you think like maybe you know more than you do sometimes, right? Like you got it all figured out, right?
Right.
So when we launched, which was July 6th or 7th, and we were basically out of money, and we were like, we just have to open. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, we're just opening. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. Just launch it, make it go live, right?
Right.
So we did, right? But I don't know if you guys remember, but it was like 110 degrees out,
It
right?
was
It was like unbearable hot, right?
Yeah, for like 2 weeks.
And we still had very little landscaping. Like we're at Home Depot buying turf, like artificial turf, just to put down to have some context of texture of green with just this parking lot look, right? A little bit of black gravel splashed on the front entrances, right? But then there was also this tree sap coming out of the trees that we had never dealt with or seen, that was making all the ground like sticky. Like we had people with these little dogs that the leaf would stick to the dog, and they would be like, like a crumpled dry leaf that like trying to get that out of the dog, right? And so I will just tell you, and initially our first unit, which was right by the street, we hadn't fenced that in from Highway 21 yet to give it at least some perception / sense of privacy or whatever, right? So our first initial reviews were like 4-star, which for us, 4-star is like devastating. Like 4-star doesn't work. Like 4-star, someone's gonna get fired if it's a cleaning issue. You know what I'm saying? So our first like handful of reviews were so demoralizing. I mean, you don't think about it. You spent 18 months on your knees in a tractor, snowing, battery won't start. You name it, right? Tree falling through the roof, right? You name all the things that the locals wanted to kill me. Right? And then you get your first, and they're still like, you're thinking, okay, we're not you're not perfect, but still, it's still a brand new tiny house. Like it's still a brand new fire pit. It's still better than anything else, right? But yeah, we got a couple of those reviews, and I'm just telling you, like me and Lynn were just like so demoralized. Like we were just like, oh gosh. But I said, you know what are you gonna do? Don't take it personal. It's just like any other time we ever get a 4-star. We just gotta keep plugging away, and whatever they're saying, let's just try to own it. And if it's real, let's try to fix it. Right?
Yeah, totally.
So that's what we did, and I will just tell you now, the reviews in the last 3 or 4 months have been all 5-star.
Dude, that's killer, man.
And I mean, the kind of reviews where people like really take their time to write such a great review. I gotta I'll do it really, really quick. But like, so we're on is it Glamping Hub? Is it Glamping Hub? We're on one camp, Hip Camp. It's called Hip Camp.
Okay.
So Hip Camp is another kind of like Airbnb type site, more for like. But this is a guy that takes the time, and I won't read the whole review, right?
Oh my gosh!
But he says, I've given 5 stars before, but only because I didn't realize I had never had a truly 5-star experience. The owners of these tiny homes know what they're doing, blah blah blah. And it says, he goes, I can almost hear them discussing their plans for building these tiny homes as I sit inside and see their plans having come to fruition. We need to spare no expense in making sure our guests have the best experience they possibly can. And then he ends with, my 10-year-old said it best when, as we sooner entered, She declared with all the confidence of youth, "This is my new favorite place in the world."
Dude.
Right?
Oh, dude.
And like someone that just even takes the time to write that, right?
Yeah.
It makes all that sacrifice, all those nights that we were driving to Home Depot before they close at 9. It's 8:58. Run in there, beg them to stay open, and fill the trailer with wood.
Well, dude, that's the vision. Like, you want those. I mean, that's what you're building it for. Is those reviews right 100%, there.
Yeah,
it's amazing. And you mentioned something, so people can bring their dogs.
Yeah, so we're pet friendly. Yeah,
so that's huge.
$50 pet fee.
Okay.
Super fair, because I got to tell you, the cleaners will go through 24 pieces of that lint roller to get it all out of the couch and the stuff. Yeah. We got to make a new house rule. We can't allow dogs in the upstairs king size loft. I didn't know that was a rule we were going to have to make, but we do. Just because if you bring a dog up there and it's a tight space, and apex, right? Yeah. The deal's trying to get every single piece of dog hair out of that bed loft. Look, I love pets. Everybody loves pets, but it's interesting to me.
They make a mess.
How are they getting a 75-pound lab up that ladder? right? Yeah. You'll just see various type of pet owners, right? Where I saw there was a hunter. So of course he's got his dog trained, right?
Of course.
He had this dog on this pad, on the porch, right? And he just points to the pad. The dog sits on the pad, closes the door, and the dog had moved off the pad, onto the deck, maybe half a foot, right? Opened the door, looked at the dog. Dog just walked right back.
Got back on the pad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you see these so interesting, varied pet ownership experiences. And I'm not. If you're the person that's bringing your pet and put it in the king size bed, look, I'm not pissed, but I'm just saying.
And then there's the pet owner where the dogs look at the human is like, oh, I'll get back on the carpet.
It's just this whole other fascinating case study in itself.
Totally. That's funny.
I mean, it's so cool, man. So cool. So cool. I love it.
I'm excited to get up there.
I am too.
I'm definitely gonna make our reservation for our family for sure.
Oh, I think I'm gonna take my wife up for the anniversary.
So, but you just blew it.
No, I won't. We're November 1st is our 20th.
So she's not going to hear this. I think we had a little bit of time.
If I can get her just to watch our YouTube videos, man. But
okay, so she's not going to listen to the podcast. We're okay then.
That's okay.
All right.
She could care less about any of it.
She's supportive. But
okay.
She's not gonna
all right. Okay. Do we have any other discussion about? Do you have any other questions about the smoke jumper?
I think we covered okay, so I guess last question would be, what's in the future for the smoke jumper?
Yeah, great. Ooh, yeah. So we still have 2 whole separate pieces of that lot that have to be, that we're going to figure out. But I can just tell you, we are 100% planning on having either 1 large or 2 hot tubs on the back part overlooking this little creek area that's surrounded by trees.
It's got to be done. You got to have the hot tub.
I think so, for wintertime, and just kind of trying to capture some of that wintertime traffic. I think just feeling like, the hot springs is awesome, but still it's only a quick 30-minute, 1-hour thing, and it's kind of at their time, not your time, right?
Yeah. Right.
And as we kind of poll our guests and ask them, what would bring you back, or what would you be stoked most if we did, or whatever, hot tub is kind of like that recurring thing that keeps coming back, where people are like, dude, I'd love to be able to put the kids to bed, walk across that little footbridge, sit in the hot tub, or send the kids over to the hot tub and let us just have our shots to the campfire, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
So there's that, and then we have another kind of a backlot behind all 7 of the houses. There's kind of a backlot that we didn't develop yet, that we're probably going to work to make it kind of a flex space that could be used for weddings. So if you wanted to have a wedding back there, put a projector screen back there, so if it's a movie night, all the kind of back behind these units, all the kids can gather or whatever and watch movies. Just kind of a flex space where it's like grass and it's cozy, and you could put chairs there. You could have a corporate event, and you could definitely have an outdoor place where you could all kind of congregate together, right? And then the smoke jumper building, as of today, has a full laundry room for our guests. So the back part of the smoke jumper building is set up for laundry room for our guests. Perfect. So because it is an outdoor activity play area.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
And you couldn't get washers and dryers in the tiny homes, right? That was the one thing we wanted, but it wasn't going to work, right? So we decided to make half of the smoke jumper building into a laundry room. So guests can go in there free of charge, do laundry, do whatever they, and it helps kind of longer stays and just feeling like,
Yeah, you're out getting muddy all day, or you're in the snow, and your clothes wet, all that stuff.
Hunters would love that.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to just kind of refresh and, out hunting for 18 hours or whatever it is, right? So,
no doubt.
And everybody's got their favorite gear, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, so the front half of the building, we're still kind of working on event space.
Cool.
Could we lease it out? Restaurant, for us, it's very organic. We want whatever we're going to do to match the vibe that we've already created. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It could be axe throwing. It could be something that's, still hopefully safe but cool. And still, our fear is, we don't want to like sublease it to something that's not going to kind of match with the guest experience or something, or feeling a responsibility that if they're not, now we're reflected poor. So there's a whole lot of thought process that goes into that, I guess is what I'm saying. We're not in a rush to figure that out. But yeah, just figure for sure hot tubs and more of a, as spring rolls around, we'll start finishing the real landscaping. Yeah. We wanted to get through one winter time since we'd done so much work and just kind of see where the ground settles and just how everything, like it's still great, right? But, just kind of bringing more texture and grass and green and trees and making sure when fall changes and all the leaves, it just has that cool,
That's so
fall
awesome, man. So cool. I love it.
So how can, I know they can go to the website, is it the Smoke Jumper Idaho?
It's just smokejumper.idaho.com.
Smokejumper.idaho.com. Or you can find them on Instagram, because that's where we actually found you guys.
Yeah,
I saw this. I'm like, wait, what is this Smoke Jumper thing? And I started looking. I
tagged you guys because I was just looking for local Idaho kind of stuff. And
awesome.
Your account's awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, go to the Instagram, follow them on Instagram, show them all the love. And then is there anywhere else that they can follow you guys, find you guys?
Yeah, so it's all Smoke Jumper Idaho, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook.
Okay.
It's all Smoke Jumper Idaho. Okay. Just like the website, smokejumper.idaho.com. And then for those that really have too much time on their hands, we do have a YouTube channel called Ambiguous Adventures, which is a mouthful to spell. But we basically documented this whole build from beginning to end.
Gotta watch that.
If you want to see all the fails and you want to see the true in-the-moment anxiety of what we were experiencing as we went through it, and we put it all out there. Like we talked about how much everything cost, how much it really cost. We broke everything down, and we started it literally from the time we walked on that property, documenting. But we really wanted to document this experience. I think there's credibility if we do future projects. Like, look, as dumb as we look, like you can see, we are, but we still made it.
Right. I'm with you.
But it's kind of also our way of kind of being able to look back and be like, dude. Even I look back and I'm like, oh, that's such a cringy video. Like, oh my god, that's so terrible.
But it's fun to look back at, though.
It is.
And see where you're at. I mean, you should see some of his first videos.
Yeah.
And I'm a YouTuber. You should see some of my first videos.
It's like you start somewhere. I don't think we've all renovated a house and then taken enough photos, and then you're like, dude, I wish I would have took photos of the before. Like, if anybody knew what this looked like before, and that's what was happening on the Oregon properties, right? Where I was like, dude, people need to know like what shit we just did.
Yeah,
this needs to be documented.
Yeah.
No doubt. So I think that was a part of that learning experience, and it's not for views or money or sponsors. We just wanted to be able to have our process out there, because I will say a ton of information I get off YouTube. If I need to learn something, your college education is right there at your fingertips.
100%.
Which I wasn't always a big YouTube person. It just wasn't a platform that I super paid attention to until I really needed to understand things I didn't know anything about, right? And there's a lot of people that do that. They might have 5 subscribers, but they put in some obscure thing that I'm trying to figure out.
Yes.
And they took the time to put that out there. And I'm like, oh, I can unlock my phone.
Yeah, exactly. For how much nonsense.
That's why the software update, it's not just me, right? Whatever it is, right?
Like I said, I always say this, for all the nonsense that's out there on YouTube, there's so much good on it as well. That's cool. I can't wait to watch that. I'm going to actually watch that. So
Tim, man, thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. Really appreciate the platform and being able to just spread our little message out there. And
you bet, man.
It's guys like you guys that are honestly helping us continue to evolve our business, hopefully, and get heads in beds, they say in the industry, right? So super stoked for you guys inviting me to come on here and share what we're doing.
It was a must, because Idaho City is just a killer place, and people just have to get up there. And now they have even a greater reason to get up there, stay in a modern house, a tiny house, modern house, and just have an experience. So thanks again, Tim.
Love it. Thanks, guys.